Mom kicked me out for her rich friend's daughter and told everyone I was jealous. So I showed up wearing a dress worth more than her car and said, "Jealous?" I was just busy winning. Her face went pale as a ghost. And I didn't stop there. My mom kicked me out of the house for her rich friend's daughter, and then she told everyone I was just jealous. I had always been close with my mom, but over the last year, her friendship with this woman, Clarissa, completely changed everything. When they brought Clarissa's daughter, Olivia, into the picture, I started feeling pushed aside. Olivia, who was everything I wasn't, rich, glamorous, and incredibly entitled. Things came to a head when my mom made me leave my own room so Olivia could stay there. I confronted her about it, and she told me I was being sensitive and jealous. It hurt, and honestly, I was furious. I decided to show up at their dinner party weeks later, wearing a dress that cost more than my mom's car, and said to her face, "Jealous?" I was just busy winning. Her face went pale, and I didn't stop there. When I first realized what was happening, I honestly thought I was imagining things. My name is Meredith, and growing up in Cedar Springs, North Carolina, I always believed family came first. My mom, Nora, raised me by herself after my dad left when I was young. She worked hard to make sure I had everything I needed, though we didn't have much in terms of money. I admired her strength and resilience, and I always thought that, no matter what, we'd stick together. Things had always been simple. I'd gone off to college, worked hard, and finally gotten a decent job in marketing after graduation. My life wasn't perfect, but I had it together. That was until Clarissa, my mom's best friend from college, moved back to Cedar Springs. She was, well, different. Clarissa was one of those people who was always talking about her wealth, the places she'd traveled, the things she'd bought. At first, it didn't bother me. After all, my mom had been friends with her for years. But when Clarissa's daughter, Olivia, started hanging around more, things began to shift in ways I never expected. Olivia wasn't just pretty. She was flawless, and I don't mean that in the sense of being attractive. She was the type of person who walked into a room and immediately became the center of attention. She had designer clothes, perfect makeup, and a lifestyle that seemed so far removed from my own, it was almost laughable. Olivia wasn't just rich, she was rich in a way that made everyone around her feel poor by comparison. But what really started to hurt was how my mom seemed to idolize her. Olivia was charming, yes, but also condescending without even realizing it. She never outright said anything cruel, but the way she spoke about the simple life I had, how I didn't get it because I wasn't exposed to the finer things, stung every time. It wasn't just her attitude that bothered me. Over time, I noticed my mom started making excuses for not including me in things. Clarissa would invite her to some fancy dinner or a weekend getaway, and my mom would act like it was no big deal that I wasn't invited. The worst part? She started to do the same to me. She stopped asking me to join the family outings, pushing me out of our shared space so Olivia could have more room to get comfortable. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then my mom started pushing me to do things like Olivia, buy new clothes, get a new car, and basically live in a way I couldn't afford or didn't even want. But things really hit rock bottom when Olivia came to stay for the summer. My mom sat me down one evening and casually mentioned that she had invited Olivia to live with us while she completed an internship at a prestigious firm in New York. I was still processing the news when my mom dropped another explosive: she was giving Olivia my room. "It's just for the summer," she said, "and I know how much you've wanted to stay with your friend, so it'll be good for both of you." But it wasn't about that. It was about her treating Olivia as more important than me. I was hurt. I tried to talk to my mom about it, but she brushed me off. She told me I was overreacting, that I should be happy Olivia was getting a chance to stay with us. I tried explaining how it felt like I was being pushed out for someone who didn't even need my mom's help, but she didn't understand. In fact, she told me something that really struck a nerve: "You're just jealous, Meredith. You need to stop being so sensitive." Jealous? Of Olivia's world? It wasn't jealousy. It was betrayal. My own mother was telling me that I was being selfish for wanting the space I had always had. My mom, who had worked hard to raise me, was now choosing a stranger over her own daughter. So, I did what anyone in my situation would do. I packed my things and left. I ended up staying with a friend for a few days, trying to figure out how to handle everything. My mind was spinning. I kept thinking about what my mom had said, how she had dismissed me so easily. I didn't feel like I was overreacting. I felt like I was being erased from her life, like I was no longer important. That's when I decided I wasn't going to just sit back and let this happen. If she thought I was jealous, I'd show her. If she thought I couldn't stand up for myself, I'd prove her wrong. A few weeks later, my mom called me, asking me to come to one of her dinner parties. She said it would be a chance for us to talk things over and that Olivia would be there, but it was fine, she wanted us to make amends. The dinner parties they threw at their house were always extravagant, full of people who were more interested in their own wealth than anything else. I didn't want to go. But then I realized something. This could be my chance to show her just how wrong she was. I went shopping the next day. I'd never spent that much money on clothes, but this felt like the one moment I could make a statement that I'd never be forgotten. I bought a dress, a beautiful, silk gown that probably cost more than my mom's car. It was bold, confident, and nothing like the person I had been before. But at that moment, I didn't care about who I was anymore. I cared about who I would become. The night of the party, I showed up in the dress, hair perfectly styled, makeup just right. I walked into that house like I owned it. My mom was in the living room, talking to Clarissa, but the second she saw me, her eyes widened. She went pale. Olivia, who had been the star of every conversation, looked at me with a mix of confusion and irritation. She clearly wasn't expecting me to make such an entrance. My mom's voice was shaky as she asked, "Meredith, what are you wearing?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Jealous?" I was just busy winning. Her face drained of color as my words hung in the air. Olivia's smirk faltered, but I didn't care about her. I had no desire to make Olivia feel threatened or upset. I wasn't there for her validation. I was there for my mother. For a few seconds, there was silence. My mom stood there, frozen. She couldn't find the words. Neither could Clarissa, who stood awkwardly in the background, unsure of how to react. It felt like the room had gone cold. I wasn't sure what I expected, but the feeling of empowerment coursed through me. Then, I turned and walked away. I didn't need to say another word. As I left the room, I could feel the weight of my mother's gaze on my back. The silence that followed was almost suffocating. I didn't care anymore. I wasn't trying to get a reaction from her, this wasn't about her feelings. It was about me proving something to myself, something I had lost sight of in the months leading up to this moment. I headed out onto the terrace where the guests were mingling, trying to collect myself. The cool breeze was a sharp contrast to the tension that had built up inside me. My hands were trembling, but I wasn't sure if it was from adrenaline or the realization that this was the first time in a long time I felt alive, like I had a purpose again, like I wasn't just a shadow in my own life. I could hear footsteps behind me. It was Olivia, stepping up next to me with her ever-present, arrogant air. I didn't look at her. Instead, I focused on the view, the large estate, the manicured gardens, the life they all led. Olivia cleared her throat, breaking the silence. "You know, you really are dramatic," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. I glanced over at her, meeting her eyes for the first time since I walked in. She was standing there, arms crossed, a mixture of amusement and disdain playing across her features. "I'm not here for you, Olivia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I never was." She raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Right. But you had to show up in that ridiculous dress to make a point, didn't you?" I shrugged. "Maybe. But you're right. I don't need to explain myself to you." The truth was, I didn't care what Olivia thought. I didn't care about her life, her status, or how she viewed me. She wasn't the one I was trying to prove something to. Olivia smirked again, a little less confidently now. Whatever. I'm sure your mom will be thrilled with your little stunt, she said before turning on her heel and walking back inside. I let out a quiet breath of relief, watching her disappear into the house. Her words didn't sting the way they used to. It wasn't because I had won, not exactly. It was because I had stopped playing her game. I knew the night was far from over. My mother hadn't said a word to me since my little statement. In fact, after my entrance, she hadn't even acknowledged me at all. Her face was pale, her mouth slightly open, as if she was waiting for something to change. For me to apologize, maybe. For me to back down and beg for her forgiveness. But that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't a child anymore, and I wasn't her puppet. This had gone too far for too long. The party continued around me, and I noticed Clarissa glancing at me every so often, her gaze filled with confusion and perhaps a little bit of pity. I didn't care what she thought either. I didn't come here for their approval. I wasn't trying to play by their rules anymore. After a while, my mom finally approached me. She didn't walk over with her usual confidence. Her steps were hesitant, unsure. I saw her pause for a moment before finally standing in front of me. Her eyes were tired, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something else in them, regret. Meredith, she started, her voice shaky. I cut her off before she could say anything more. Don't, I said, my tone firm but calm. Don't try to apologize now. Don't make excuses. I don't need to hear it. Her eyes widened, and she opened her mouth, probably to argue, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. Not tonight. I don't need your guilt, Mom. I don't need your pity, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. What I need is respect. What I need is to be treated like I'm important too. You didn't just kick me out for Olivia, you pushed me aside for her. You made me feel like I was nothing. And maybe I took it for too long, but I won't anymore. My mom's face fell. She opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Her lips quivered slightly as if she were struggling to find a way to fix everything with just a few words. But there were no words that could undo what had been done. I stared at her, holding my ground, and then I realized something. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her to see me the way she saw Olivia. I was enough on my own. I had to be. I'm not angry anymore, I continued, my voice softer now. But I'm done playing this game. I'm done feeling like I'm invisible to you. My mother's expression faltered, and I could see her wrestling with her emotions. But there was a long pause before she spoke, and when she finally did, it was in a quiet, almost defeated voice. I didn't mean to hurt you, Meredith. I got caught up in everything. Clarissa, Olivia, their world. It was like I was trying to live in their world, and I didn't see how I was leaving you behind. I could feel a lump form in my throat. My mother wasn't just apologizing, she was acknowledging her mistake. For the first time in months, I felt like I might get my mom back. But I wasn't about to let her off the hook that easily. It's not just about the room, Mom, I said quietly. It's about how you chose them over me. It's about how you made me feel like I wasn't enough. I don't expect everything to go back to normal right away, but this isn't something we can just sweep under the rug. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. But I wasn't sure if they were tears of regret or guilt. Either way, it didn't change what had happened. Maybe we can talk more tomorrow, she asked, her voice quieter now. I want to fix this. I nodded, though I wasn't sure how much could be fixed. But I did know one thing, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. Maybe my mom hadn't been perfect, but she was at least trying now. I'll think about it, I said, my voice steady again. I gave her a brief, uncertain smile. But for tonight, I'm going home. I'll call you tomorrow. And with that, I turned and walked out the door, leaving behind the mansion, the glitz, the glamour, and most importantly, Olivia. As I walked out the front door, the cool night air hit me like a welcome relief. The pressure in my chest, the one that had been building ever since I walked into that house, seemed to loosen just a little with each step I took away from the mansion. The drive home felt quieter than it ever had before. The headlights from the car ahead of me blurred in the rearview mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control of my own life again. I hadn't expected my mom's apology to feel so hollow, yet somehow, it did. Her words were an attempt, yes, but they were wrapped in a guilt I didn't want to carry. I realized then that I wasn't going to allow myself to be controlled by her or anyone else again. If there was one thing I had learned over the past year, it was that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet. My worth wasn't tied to the approval of others, no matter how much they might have tried to make me believe otherwise. The next few weeks passed by in a strange limbo. My mom tried reaching out to me, but I kept my distance. I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, not entirely. She'd done a lot of damage, and it wasn't something that could be fixed with just a few nice words. The more I thought about everything, the more I realized how deeply I needed to rebuild my own sense of self-worth, away from her and anyone else who didn't value me. But what really settled the feeling of peace in me, what gave me the most satisfaction, was the way Olivia's smug attitude began to fade in front of everyone else. It happened gradually, though it wasn't lost on me. Clarissa had invited Olivia to yet another of their extravagant dinners, but this time, the focus wasn't on Olivia. No, the focus shifted to me. It started when I posted a picture on social media. I'd been traveling for work, as I usually did, and during one of my trips, I had found myself at a conference. The event was an upscale networking gala with high-profile professionals, and I'd ended up speaking with some of the most influential people in my industry. By the end of the week, I had a couple of promising offers from companies I never would have dreamed of even a year ago. The picture I posted was of me in a sleek new suit, standing next to a few people I'd met at the event. In the caption, I simply said, "Hard work pays off. Here's to the future." It wasn't an overt brag, but it was a subtle reminder that I wasn't some jealous, insecure girl anymore. I was building my own empire. The post blew up more than I expected. Comments flooded in, some from people I had met at the conference, others from people who had seen my work online. But the real turning point came when I noticed my mom's friends, including Clarissa, commenting on how impressed they were by what I was doing. I could see Clarissa and Olivia watching, too. The next weekend, there was another dinner at the house. This time, I hadn't been invited. But that didn't matter. I wasn't trying to prove anything to them anymore. I had made my point. The dinner came and went, and I didn't think twice about it, until Olivia reached out to me a few days later. It was an unexpected message, the kind you get when someone is suddenly feeling vulnerable. "Hey, Meredith," she wrote, "I saw your post from last week. Wow. I didn't know you were doing so well. That's impressive." I stared at the message for a moment. Olivia, the girl who used to look down on me like I was invisible, was suddenly reaching out. And, surprisingly, I wasn't bitter. I had learned to let go of the anger. I didn't need her approval anymore, nor did I need her validation. Still, I couldn't resist a small, satisfying smile before I typed my response. "Thanks, Olivia. It's all about hard work and building my own path. Hope things are good with you, too." I didn't say much else. But I knew exactly what she was really trying to do. She was trying to re-enter my life, trying to pretend like things were fine. But this time, I wasn't going to let her waltz back in. The next few weeks were full of subtle shifts. Olivia tried to insert herself back into the picture, but it didn't work. My mom, while still trying to get back into my good graces, began seeing the changes in me. She saw how I was moving forward, how I was building something for myself. One day, she invited me over for coffee, just the two of us. The conversation started awkwardly, but eventually, she apologized again, this time without the weight of guilt. It was a real apology, one that came from understanding the hurt she had caused. But this time, I was able to look her in the eyes without feeling resentful. I don't know what I was thinking, Meredith, she said, her voice soft but sincere. I got caught up in trying to keep up with people who had so much more than we did. I neglected you. I'm sorry. I know you didn't mean it that way, I replied, my voice calm. But it hurts. It really did. And I'm still not sure where we go from here, but I can't keep living in that shadow. I need to be my own person. She nodded, a tear slipping from her eye. I understand. I just want you to be happy, Meredith. I want to be part of your life again, but I also want to respect the person you're becoming. I didn't have the answer for her right then. But it was the first time in months that I could see my mother as someone who was finally beginning to get it, finally beginning to realize that I wasn't just her daughter. I was my own person. And then, out of nowhere, Olivia showed up at my apartment. She was standing on the doorstep, looking hesitant but determined. It wasn't just the typical Olivia bravado that I was used to, she actually seemed uncomfortable. I know I've been a lot lately, she said awkwardly. And I know I've treated you badly. Honestly, I thought you were just being jealous of my life, but I see now I was wrong. I was selfish. You've done amazing things, and I wanted to say, I'm sorry. For a moment, I just stared at her, unsure of how to react. I didn't owe her an apology or an explanation. But I also didn't need to keep holding on to old grudges. Thanks, I said simply. But I'm not going to pretend like everything is fine between us. I'm happy for you, Olivia. I'm doing my thing, and I think you should do the same. Maybe we don't need to compete anymore. She looked surprised by my calm response, but there was something almost relieved in her expression. I get it. Maybe we could start fresh. When we're ready. No competition. I smiled faintly. Yeah. No competition. And with that, Olivia turned and left. No drama, no false expectations. Just a mutual understanding that we didn't need to tear each other down to survive. It was over. And I had won, not just in the ways I had set out to, but in ways that mattered even more. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I was who I was, and for the first time, I was proud of it. The revenge wasn't about humiliating anyone or proving my superiority. It was about finding my own strength and rebuilding my life on my terms. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. I had won my freedom. I had won myself back.